Logan Carter had always prided himself on being a man of routine. At 45, his life as a cardiologist in Boston was a meticulously organized symphony of early mornings, long shifts at the hospital, and quiet evenings with his wife, Olivia. They'd been married for 18 years, a fact he often marveled at, given how swiftly time had slipped through their fingers. Olivia, a freelance graphic designer with a penchant for abstract art, had once filled their brownstone with vibrant canvases and the scent of oil paint. Lately, though, her easel stood gathering dust in the corner of the sunlit studio she claimed as her own. The first sign, Logan realized in hindsight, had been the sudden resurgence of her creativity. Olivia began staying out late, citing collaborative projects with other artists. She'd return home with flushed cheeks and a distracted air, her hands still smudged with charcoal or acrylics. At first, he'd been relieved. Her months of creative block had worried him. But when she started attending weekend art retreats, leaving him alone in their too-quiet home, a gnawing suspicion took root. One Thursday evening, as Logan sorted through mail, a glossy postcard slipped from the stack. It advertised an art gallery opening. Eclipsed Realities. New works by Olivia Carter and Adrian Voss. The date was 2 weeks prior. He stared at the bold font, his chest tightening. Olivia hadn't mentioned an exhibition, let alone a collaborator named Adrian. When he confronted her that night, she laughed lightly, brushing it off. Oh, that? It was a last-minute thing. Adrian's a local sculptor. We pooled resources for the venue. Her tone was breezy, but her eyes darted away as she stirred her chamomile tea. I didn't think you care. You've been so busy with work. Logan let it go. He had been busy. A string of emergency surgeries had left him exhausted. But the name Adrian Voss lingered in his mind. He Googled the man later that week. Mid-30s, tousled dark hair, a smirk that seemed tailor-made for gallery openings. His sculptures were all jagged metal and provocative angles, a stark contrast to Olivia's soft, flowing abstracts. The next retreat was scheduled for a weekend in the Berkshires. It's just 3 days, Olivia said, packing a suitcase with bohemian scarves and her favourite sketch pad. We're renting a cabin with a few others. No signal up there, so don't panic if I'm offline. Logan nodded, kissing her forehead. Have fun. But by Sunday afternoon, restlessness drove him to the hospital for an unscheduled shift. As he reviewed a patient's charts, his phone buzzed, a notification from their home security system. Motion detected in the studio. He frowned. Olivia wasn't due back until Monday. Pulling up the live feed, he watched in disbelief as a figure moved through the room. Olivia, wearing a paint-splattered denim dress he didn't recognize. Behind her, Adrian Voss leaned against her desk, grinning as she gestured at a half-finished canvas. Logan's throat went dry. The timestamp read 2:17 p.m. today. He left the hospital in a daze, driving home through a haze of red lights. The studio door was unlocked. Inside, the air smelled of turpentine and a faint trace of cologne. Olivia's suitcase sat in the corner, unopened. Logan. Her voice came from the hallway, startled. She stepped into the studio, her cheeks pink. What are you doing here? I could ask you the same. His voice sounded foreign, cold. The Berkshires, Olivia, really. For a heartbeat, she looked cornered. Then her expression hardened. I came back early. Adrian needed feedback on his piece for the next show. In our studio. On a weekend we're supposedly out of town. Don't do this. She crossed her arms. You're being paranoid. Logan glanced at her desk. A coffee cup sat beside her laptop. 2 cups, one stained with lipstick. His hands trembled. How long has this been going on? Olivia's silence was answer enough. The following weeks passed in a suffocating limbo. Logan moved through his shifts at the hospital like a ghost, his fingers steady during surgeries, but his mind fractured. Olivia oscillated between brittle defensiveness and uncharacteristic attempts at tenderness, making his favourite lasagna, leaving sketches of his profile on the kitchen counter. Each gesture felt like a lie coated in sugar. He began waking before dawn, driven by a compulsive need to know. One morning, he found himself parked outside a converted warehouse in South Boston, its brick facade adorned with graffiti. Adrian's studio, according to the gallery's website. Logan watched as figures drifted in and out, artists clutching portfolios and coffee cups. At 9:07 a.m., Olivia emerged from a silver Audi he didn't recognize. Adrian followed, his hand brushing the small of her back as he held the door. Logan's phone rang. Olivia's name flashed on the screen. He let it go to voicemail. That evening, she confronted him in the study, her eyes blazing. "Are you following me?" He didn't look up from his medical journal. "Should I be?" "I saw your car near Adrian's studio today." "Funny. I was at Mass General all morning." The lie came easily, a skill he'd honed over years of delivering bad news to families. Olivia hesitated, then tossed a folded flyer onto his desk. "We're hosting a joint exhibit next month. I want you to come." The paper screamed Adrian's name in bold letters. Logan smoothed it with trembling fingers. "Why?" "Because." Her voice cracked. "Because I need you to see what this is. It's not what you think." The gallery opening reeked of pretension and Pinot Noir. Adrian's sculptures loomed like twisted skeletons, while Olivia's paintings swirled with violent reds and blacks, a far cry from her earlier work. Logan stood near a piece titled Erosion, its layers of paint scraped raw. "She's brilliant, isn't she?" Adrian materialized beside him, holding 2 glasses of champagne. Up close, he smelled of sandalwood and arrogance. Logan ignored the offered drink. "How long have you been sleeping with my wife?" Adrian's smirk faltered. "Is that what she told you?" "I don't need her to tell me." The sculptor glanced across the room, where Olivia laughed with a collector. "You're a smart man, Logan, but you're asking the wrong questions." The truth came not in a confession, but in a prescription bottle. Logan found it tucked behind Olivia's moisturizers, anti-anxiety meds, prescribed 6 months prior. The dates aligned with her first retreat. When he confronted her, she crumpled onto the bed, her defiance dissolving. "I couldn't tell you. You were so consumed with work. And then the art. It was the only thing that kept me from." "From what?" "Destroying us." "From disappearing." Her voice rose, raw. "I was drowning, Logan. You didn't even notice." He stared at her, the woman who'd once painted their future in sunlit strokes. "So you chose him." "I chose me." The divorce proceedings were swift, clinical. Olivia took her canvases and the Audi, which Adrian had gifted her after the exhibit's success. Logan kept the brownstone, its empty rooms echoing with phantom laughter. Months later, a postcard arrived, a photo of Olivia's latest work, exhibited in Berlin. On the back, a single line, "I'm sorry I couldn't stay." Logan tucked it into a drawer, next to the wedding photo he hadn't yet boxed away. That night, he dreamed of swirling colors and a name he'd never speak again.